The most prepared family in Texas died first when the grid collapsed. Their bunker was perfect, their supplies endless, their training military grade. So why didn't they last 72 hours? The answer exposes a fatal flaw that 90% of preppers are making right now. And you probably are too. When most people hear the word prepper, they immediately think of some wild-eyed guy living in a concrete bunker with enough ammunition to supply a small army, beard down to his chest, suspicious of every neighbor, convinced the government is tracking his cereal purchases. Yeah, that guy makes great television. But here's what nobody talks about. He's about as common as a unicorn riding a bicycle. Real preppers, they're your coworkers. The nurse who keeps extra medical supplies at home. Your neighbor who actually knows how to change a tire without calling roadside assistance. That friend who never runs out of batteries during power outages. These aren't conspiracy theorists plotting the downfall of civilization. They're regular folks who figured out something pretty simple. Bad stuff happens, not because of secret government plots or alien invasions, because life is unpredictable, and nature doesn't care about your schedule. You wear a seatbelt, right? Not because you're paranoid about car crashes, but because you're smart enough to know they happen. You probably have insurance on your house, even though you're not sitting around hoping for a fire. That's risk management, plain and simple. Prepping is just risk management with a catchier name. The media loves the crazy stories, though. Show a normal family with some extra food in their pantry, and viewers change the channel. But film someone talking about underground bunkers and electromagnetic pulse attacks, pure ratings gold. The problem is, this creates a completely twisted picture of what prepping actually looks like for most people. Then, there's the interesting reality nobody wants to admit. Most preppers have never called themselves that. They just grew up with grandparents who lived through the Great Depression. People who understood that keeping some extra food around wasn't paranoia, it was common sense. Somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves that depending entirely on grocery stores and delivery apps was normal. Really? Having zero backup plan is the weird choice here. And the weird part is, most prepping pays off during boring, everyday emergencies. Your water heater breaks on a Sunday night. Snowstorm knocks out power for 3 days. You get sick and can't make it to the store for a week. These aren't Hollywood disasters requiring underground bunkers. They're Tuesday afternoon problems that happen to everyone eventually. But let's not forget the elephant in the room. People who make fun of preppers still ask them for help when things go sideways. When hurricane whatever its name hits, guess whose house becomes the neighborhood charging station? When the grocery stores run out of toilet paper during the next panic buying frenzy, who do you think people call first? Makes sense, right? Having a basic plan isn't about living in fear, it's about sleeping better at night, knowing you won't be completely helpless if something goes wrong. Which brings up an important question about getting started, because most people think they need to spend a fortune on fancy gear and supplies to be properly prepared. Well, that's another myth worth busting. The biggest lie about prepping? That you need to be rich to get started. Wrong? Dead wrong. Most people think prepping means dropping thousands on freeze-dried meals and military-grade equipment. They scroll through survivalist websites, see $300 water filters and $500 emergency radios, then give up before they even try. But here's what the fancy gear companies don't want you to know. Smart preppers build their supplies $1 at a time. Start with $5. That's it. Buy an extra can of soup, a flashlight from the dollar store, or a lighter. Next week, grab another can and some batteries. The week after that, maybe some rice or pasta. Before you know it, you've got a week's worth of food without breaking the bank. It's like compound interest, but for survival. Then, there's the secret weapon broke preppers have discovered. Skills cost nothing but time. Learning to start a fire without matches? Free YouTube University. Understanding basic first aid? The Red Cross teaches it cheap. Growing your own food? Seeds cost pocket change, and your neighbors probably got extras. These abilities stay with you forever, unlike that expensive gadget that breaks when you need it most. The weird part is how creative people get when money's tight. Old coffee cans become storage containers. Milk jugs turn into water storage. That ratty backpack in your closet? Perfect bug-out bag. One guy I know made candles from cooking grease and string. Another turned old t-shirts into bandages and fire starters. Necessity breeds innovation, and innovation beats expensive gear every single time. Let's not forget the treasure trove of free knowledge floating around everywhere. Libraries have survival guides, gardening books, and first aid manuals gathering dust. Online forums buzz with experienced preppers sharing hard-won wisdom. Local community colleges offer workshops on everything from canning food to basic electronics repair. The information that could save your life costs exactly $0. But here's where most people mess up. They think bigger always means better. They blow their grocery money on a year's supply of freeze-dried beef stroganoff instead of learning to preserve food themselves. Smart preppers know that 3 weeks of actual rotating food beats a closet full of expensive packets they'll never eat. Makes sense, right? The psychology works in your favor too. When you're building slowly, you actually use what you buy. That extra peanut butter gets eaten and replaced. Those batteries get tested regularly. You develop real habits instead of stuffing a closet and forgetting about it. Poor preppers often end up better prepared than rich ones because they can't afford to waste anything. Well, there's another advantage to starting small. You learn what you actually need versus what marketing tells you to want. That $50 tactical pen might look cool, but a regular pen and a sturdy stick work just fine. Experience teaches you the difference between useful and useless faster than any credit card ever could. Even with all this practical wisdom, there's still one massive mistake that trips up new preppers, regardless of their budget. You'd think buying the latest survival gear would turn you into some kind of disaster superhero, right? Wrong. The truth is, most people who survive real emergencies aren't the ones with the fanciest equipment. They're the ones who actually know what they're doing. Here's something that might surprise you. During Hurricane Katrina, some folks with expensive water purifiers died of dehydration because they never learned how to use them properly. Meanwhile, others survived by knowing that clear plastic bottles filled with water and left in sunlight for 6 hours can kill most harmful bacteria. Free knowledge beat expensive gadgets every single time. Skills stick with you no matter what happens. Your $300 tactical flashlight? It breaks, gets lost, or runs out of batteries. But knowing how to start a fire with steel wool and a battery means you'll have light and warmth anywhere, anytime. The ability to treat a wound properly can save someone's life even if your first aid kit gets swept away in a flood. Let's not forget the practice problem. Most people buy gear, stuff it in a closet, and assume they're prepared. That's like buying a piano and expecting to play Carnegie Hall without ever touching the keys. When adrenaline kicks in during a real emergency, your hands shake and your brain goes fuzzy. If you haven't practiced using that emergency radio or water filter dozens of times, good luck figuring it out when it actually matters. Then there's the weight issue nobody talks about. Some preppers load themselves down with so much equipment they can barely move. Professional wilderness guides carry maybe 20 pounds of essential gear, not 80 pounds of just-in-case items. Speed and mobility often matter more than having every possible tool. But why do skills beat stuff every time? Because disasters are unpredictable, and gear is specific. Your fancy camping stove won't help if you need to signal for rescue. Your tactical knife won't purify contaminated water. But someone who understands basic physics, biology, and problem solving can improvise solutions with whatever materials are actually available. The weird part is how gear can actually make you less safe. It creates a false sense of security. You think, I've got this covered because I bought the best equipment. Meanwhile, you never learn to read weather patterns, recognize the early signs of hypothermia, or navigate without GPS. When your gadgets fail, and they will fail, you're left helpless. Real survivors share one common trait. They're resourceful. They look at everyday objects and see tools. They understand that a soda can become a reflective signaling device, that duct tape fixes almost everything, and that staying calm and thinking clearly beats panicking with a backpack full of gear. The most successful preppers invest their time learning skills first, then buy equipment to support what they already know how to do. They practice regularly, maintain their gear, and most importantly, they understand that their brain is their most valuable survival tool. Speaking of survival tools, there's another myth that needs busting. This whole idea that you need some kind of fortress to stay safe. Popular culture loves the image of the lone wolf prepper holed up in a concrete bunker, armed to the teeth and ready for war. Hollywood has sold us this fantasy so hard that many people think serious prepping means digging underground and stockpiling ammunition. Well, here's the reality check nobody talks about. Bunkers and bullets can actually make you less safe, not more. Most disasters don't require you to disappear into a hole in the ground. Power outages, severe storms, and even supply chain disruptions are best handled right where you are, at home. Your house already has plumbing, insulation, and familiar surroundings. Why abandon all those advantages to sit in a concrete box eating canned beans by candlelight? Then there's the isolation problem. Bunkers might sound secure, but what happens when you have a medical emergency down there? No cell service, no neighbors to help, no way for paramedics to reach you quickly. You could survive a hurricane only to die from a heart attack because you're too far from help. That's not preparedness. That's creating new problems while solving old ones. The weapons obsession presents another issue entirely. Don't get me wrong, personal protection has its place in any comprehensive plan, but some preppers spend more on firearms than they do on water storage or first aid supplies. They're preparing for Mad Max when they should be preparing for the last ice storm that knocked out power for a week. The math doesn't add up. Here's what survival experts actually recommend. Shelter in place whenever possible. Your home is already fortified against weather, stocked with your belongings, and located in an area you know well. Most emergencies resolve within days, not years. You're far better off making your current living situation more resilient than building an expensive backup location you might never need. Let's not forget that communities consistently outperform individuals during crises. Neighbors share resources, watch each other's backs, and pool their skills. The guy with medical training helps the woman with the generator. The family with extra food trades with the household that has spare batteries. And this kind of mutual aid has gotten people through disasters for centuries. Isolation makes you vulnerable in ways that go beyond immediate safety. Mental health suffers when you're completely cut off. Children need stability and social contact. Extended families need to stay connected. A bunker mentality can destroy the very relationships that make survival worthwhile. The irony runs even deeper. While some preppers focus on fictional societal collapse scenarios, they overlook mundane but likely problems. Water heater failures, job loss, car breakdowns, minor injuries. These everyday emergencies happen constantly and rarely require underground hideouts or tactical gear. Smart preppers understand that resilience comes from flexibility, not fortress mentality. They build networks instead of walls. They invest in practical skills rather than expensive isolation chambers. And they recognize that most threats are temporary inconveniences, not permanent lifestyle changes. Community connections and home-based preparations handle the vast majority of real-world scenarios. But what about all those supplies you'll need? That brings us to another common misconception that trips up new preppers. Your grandmother's basement with 47 cases of expired canned peaches isn't preparedness. It's hoarding with good intentions. There's a massive difference between smart stockpiling and cramming your garage full of stuff you'll never use. Real preppers rotate their supplies like grocery stores do. First in, first out. They eat what they store and store what they eat. Makes sense, right? When disaster strikes, you're not gambling on whether that 5-year-old pasta sauce will give you food poisoning. Hoarding happens when fear takes over logic. People buy 20 bags of rice but forget they hate rice. They stockpile batteries for devices they don't own. The weird part is they feel safer surrounded by piles of random stuff, but they're actually less prepared than someone with a thoughtful 3-day supply. Let's talk water for a second. 1 gallon per person per day is the standard recommendation. Most people skip this completely because it's boring compared to fancy freeze-dried meals, but here's what emergency responders know. You'll die from dehydration long before you starve. Water weighs 8 pounds per gallon, so storing it takes planning, not panic buying. Then, there's the expiration game hoarders always lose. They buy 50 cans of soup and forget about them until they're cleaning out their closet 3 years later. Smart preppers mark purchase dates, set phone reminders, and actually use their supplies during normal times. Your emergency food shouldn't be mystery meat you wouldn't feed your dog. Quality beats quantity every single time. 3 cases of food you'll actually eat trumps 10 cases of random clearance items. Professional disaster relief workers learned this the hard way. Communities with smaller, well-organized supplies bounce back faster than those drowning in expired donations. Most disasters last 72 hours to 2 weeks, not decades. The government's own emergency management guidelines focus on short-term self-sufficiency, not building underground fortresses. But why do people still prep like they're facing nuclear winter? Because movies make better money selling drama than teaching practical skills. Well, here's where it gets interesting. The best prepared families often share and trade with neighbors. Their stockpile becomes community currency when everyone needs help. Hoarding creates enemies. Smart preparation builds relationships. Storage matters too. Mice don't care about your survival plans, and neither do floods or temperature swings. Proper containers, climate control, and organization separate the pros from the amateurs. Your supplies should be accessible, labeled, and protected from the basic threats that destroy food faster than any disaster will. Space is another reality check. Most people don't have aircraft hangars for storage. Every square foot counts when you're balancing normal life with emergency preparedness. Efficient storage means choosing versatile supplies that serve multiple purposes, not collecting single-use gadgets. The smartest preppers know something hoarders miss. Your brain is your most valuable resource. Learning to preserve food, purify water, and fix broken equipment matters more than buying pre-made everything. Skills don't expire, break, or take up closet space. Speaking of skills, what happens when the power goes out and your electric can opener becomes a paperweight? When most people think about who's best prepared for disasters, they picture tough military veterans with tactical training and combat experience. Well, here's a reality check that might surprise you. The folks who actually thrive during real emergencies often wear scrubs, overalls, or aprons instead of camouflage. Dr. Sarah Martinez learned this firsthand during Hurricane Katrina. While trained soldiers struggled with supply logistics, she kept her neighborhood alive using basic medical knowledge and creative problem solving. No rappelling skills required. She turned kitchen supplies into medical equipment and organized neighbors into effective rescue teams. Her secret weapon? Years of thinking on her feet in hospital emergency rooms. Then, there's Mike, a plumber from Ohio who became a local hero during the 2021 winter storm that knocked out power for weeks. His military buddies were great at setting up perimeters, but Mike knew how to prevent pipes from bursting, jury-rig heating systems, and keep water flowing when everything else failed. Turns out fixing toilets at 2 a.m. prepares you pretty well for crisis management. But here's where it gets interesting. The most valuable disaster skills aren't taught in boot camp at all. Teachers know how to keep groups calm under pressure and organize chaos into manageable tasks. Farmers understand weather patterns, food preservation, and how to make things work with whatever's available. Cooks can stretch limited ingredients into meals that actually taste decent when morale is low. Mental toughness matters more than physical training anyway. A kindergarten teacher who's dealt with 20 screaming 5-year-olds during a fire drill has stress management skills that would impress a drill sergeant. She knows how to project calm when everything's falling apart and make quick decisions that keep people safe. Physical fitness helps, obviously. Nobody's arguing against being in decent shape. However, you don't need to bench press a truck or run marathons to handle most emergency situations. Basic stamina and flexibility beat extreme fitness if you're smart about conserving energy and working efficiently. The real survival skill is adaptability. Civilians have been figuring out creative solutions to deadly problems for thousands of years without military training. Your grandmother probably survived the Great Depression using nothing but common sense and determination. No tactical manuals required. Problem solving beats push-ups every time. Can you improvise when Plan A falls apart? Do you stay level-headed when things get weird? Those abilities come from life experience, not combat training. The single mom juggling 3 jobs while caring for aging parents has already mastered skills that matter during disasters. Learning basic prepping doesn't require signing up for survival courses that cost more than your car payment. Start with simple stuff like first aid, basic repairs, or how to purify water. YouTube beats boot camp for most practical knowledge anyway. Every skill set brings something valuable to the table during tough times. The question isn't whether you got military training. It's whether you can think clearly when the lights go out and normal life stops working. Speaking of lights going out, that brings us to another myth that might leave you in the dark when you need help most. Here's the harsh truth nobody talks about. Your smartphone isn't magic, and neither is the electrical grid. When Hurricane Sandy hit New York in 2012, millions of people suddenly discovered their fancy devices were just expensive paperweights. Cell towers went dark. Internet vanished. GPS became useless. People who couldn't navigate without their phones got genuinely lost trying to find basic supplies just blocks from their homes. The average American checks their phone 96 times per day. We've become utterly dependent on technology for everything from telling time to finding our way to the bathroom in a restaurant, but power grids are surprisingly fragile things. A single squirrel caused a blackout that affected 20,000 homes in Montana. One squirrel. If a rodent can take down your neighborhood's electricity, what happens during an ice storm or cyber attack? Smart preppers keep analog backups for digital solutions. Paper maps might seem ancient, but they work when satellites don't. A basic compass costs $5 and never needs charging. These aren't complicated tools requiring special training. Your grandfather used them just fine. Then, there's the radio situation most people completely ignore. When cell networks crash, AM, FM radio stations often keep broadcasting emergency information. Battery-powered or hand-crank radios can connect you to vital updates about evacuation routes, shelter locations, or when power might return. During the Texas freeze of 2021, many families huddled around old radios while their dead smartphones sat useless on counters. But here's where it gets interesting. Low-tech solutions often outperform high-tech ones during disasters. Candles provide light and heat. Manual can openers work when electric ones don't. Cash transactions happen when credit card systems fail. These aren't revolutionary concepts. They're reliable basics our great-grandparents took for granted. The funny thing about backup power is how wrong most people get it. They buy expensive generators, but forget to store fuel properly, or they purchase solar chargers that take forever to juice up a dead phone. Meanwhile, a simple hand-crank flashlight provides immediate light and often includes radio capabilities. No fuel needed, no waiting for sunshine. Emergency communication deserves special attention because isolation kills hope fast. Two-way radios let family members stay connected across short distances when cell towers fail. Whistles carry farther than voices and use zero battery power. Even something as basic as reflective mirrors can signal for help during daylight emergencies. Weather apps disappear with internet connections, but natural signs remain constant. Dark clouds still mean storms. Temperature drops still predict freezing conditions. Wind direction changes still signal weather shifts. Indigenous people survived for thousands of years reading these natural indicators, and they're more reliable than any forecast algorithm. The real problem isn't technology failing, it's forgetting alternatives exist. Keep a wristwatch that doesn't need charging. Learn to read analog clocks. Practice using physical keys instead of keypad locks. These small habits build resilience without requiring major lifestyle changes. Your devices will eventually fail you. Batteries die, networks crash, satellites malfunction. What matters is having simple alternatives ready before you desperately need them. Speaking of building resilience through simple preparation, let's examine why flexibility beats prediction every single time. Here's the thing about disaster planning. Nobody has a crystal ball. You can't predict whether you'll face a hurricane, blackout, job loss, or your neighbor's tree crashing through your roof. Well, maybe you could see that last one coming if you really paid attention to those dead branches. Most people get stuck trying to prepare for specific disasters. They obsess over earthquake kits or flood plans, then get blindsided by something completely different. The 2020 toilet paper shortage? Nobody saw that coming. Ice storms in Texas caught everyone off guard. That's exactly why rigid planning fails. Smart preppers focus on adaptability instead of prediction. Think about it like learning to drive. You don't memorize every possible road scenario. You learn basic skills that work anywhere. Steering, braking, checking mirrors. These fundamentals help whether you're dodging potholes or deer. The same principle applies to emergency preparedness. Water storage helps during droughts, pipe breaks, and contamination scares. First aid skills matter for accidents, natural disasters, and medical emergencies. A hand crank radio works when storms knock out power or when you're camping and the cell towers go down. But here's where most people stumble. They create these elaborate movie-style disaster plans that crumble the moment reality hits. Real emergencies are messy, unpredictable. Your perfect evacuation route might be flooded. Your backup generator might not start. Your carefully planned meeting spot could be completely inaccessible. Flexibility beats perfection every single time. Start with simple, repeatable routines instead of complex master plans. Keep a basic checklist of what to grab if you need to leave quickly. Practice different routes to important places. Run through basic scenarios with your family, but don't get obsessed with scripting every detail. Then, there's the fact that your needs change constantly. Young families worry about different things than retirees. City dwellers face different challenges than rural folks. Your health, income, and living situation shift over time. What worked 5 years ago might be completely wrong for your current life. Review and adjust your preparations regularly, maybe quarterly, maybe yearly, whatever fits your schedule. Ask yourself what's changed since your last check. New medications, different work schedule, kids moved out. Each shift requires tweaking your approach. The weird part is how this flexibility actually reduces stress instead of increasing it. When you accept that you can't control everything, you stop trying to. Instead, you build general resilience, the ability to bounce back from whatever life throws at you. That resilience comes from developing a problem-solving mindset rather than memorizing specific responses. How do you stay warm without electricity? Multiple options beat a single solution. How do you communicate when phones don't work? Again, backup methods and creative thinking trump rigid protocols. Successful prepping isn't about becoming a fortune teller or building the perfect fortress. It's about cultivating the mental flexibility and practical skills that help you adapt to changing circumstances. Speaking of practical skills, let's talk about which ones actually matter when everything goes sideways.